Seiko 6309-7290, also known as the Slim Turtle. I just got this, well, I got this a few months ago, but I just got it serviced recently, so I'm super happy with this purchase, with this watch. This is my first 6309 diver. I have had a couple of Seiko 5s with that movement, great robust movement, but this is my very first diver, and I went with a bit rarer model. This is a bit more rare than the Turtle, the 6309-704X, the regular Turtle. Yeah, I'm super happy because it's all original. It's very difficult to find this reference in well, pristine, but also 100% original parts. It's very hard. So a little bit of history about this model. The case, this is not the very first time they used the familiar SKX case, as some of you may initially see this and think it's in SKX, but upon further detail we can see that yeah, it's a different reference. The very first model to use a slim case was the 7548 quartz diver. I have a video about that in 1978, and that was made until 1985. But around 1982, Seiko released this reference, which was the very first automatic with the slim case. So it wasn't the very first using this case, but it was the very first using an automatic movement in this case. And as you see, there are square markers. This is new back then. There is influence, so nothing is, doesn't come from from the sky. The 6105, the Willard, as you recall, that's way above my budget, but those use square markers. So there is a little bit of reminiscence between that one and this one, this Slim Turtle. So this houses the 6309 movement, which that calibers here is the 6X series, is fantastic, comes from the, I believe, all the way back from the 60s, the DNA. This was only made from 1982 until 1988. So that may seem like a long time, but if you look at the lineage between Seiko divers, it wasn't that much. The Turtle was made between 76 and 88, 12 years. So this was exactly half of it. The SKX was made from 1996 to 2019, so a long stretch. That's why it's very hard these days to find a 100% original example of this model. I think there's a couple of reasons that this reference is hard to find original. I've read and heard, I think it was by Spencer Klein, that this was not used well, it wasn't sold in the US back then. These days we can get everything, by the internet and JDM models, but back in the day in the 80s must have been a lot harder unless you physically traveled to other parts of the world. I think this was more of a international model. By that I mean Asia, Europe. As you see, the date wheel is in German, so I think this was more maybe South America, perhaps. Yeah, definitely South America, because there's a lot of English and Spanish date wheels. But I believe it wasn't used a lot in the U.S. and I haven't seen a lot of photos and archives of U.S. military servicemen using this model as opposed to the regular cushion-cased Turtle. So I think there's that. Another reason it's harder to find 100% original is because it has the SKX case, so there was probably a lot of modding involved. With the 7002 diver, of course, the same thing. And then I think this was also popular in Asia, this model, so you can imagine back then there was a lot of humidity, and imagine Vietnam and Thailand and all those Southeast Asia countries, it must have been a lot easier for humidity to ingress this watch. But yeah, I was really lucky to get this in very good condition. It appears unpolished to my eyes, and I prefer, if you've seen my videos, I prefer unpolished pieces because it preserves the architecture from factory, you know. So the differences between this one and more modern pieces is that there's the bezel is 60 clicks, and it's absolutely fantastic. The bezel, it's simple but simple and robust. You know, there's a, if you remove the, it took me a hard time to remove the bezel, to pry it out carefully, but there's a ball there, like a ball system, which fortunately didn't fall out, because I read that it falls out easily, sort of like if you can imagine a pen, like a big like a pointed that ball from pens, and I've actually read that you can replace, you know, one of those ball points from pens to you know, to replace this ball in case it gets lost. And yeah, I lubricated the gasket and put it in ultrasonic. When I bought this model, it was really dirty. I mean, it was nice that the crystal was the crystal originally was very scratched, but the seller replaced it free of charge before shipping it to me. I bought it from a US based seller, and yeah, so there's a brand new mineral crystal, which I prefer on, you know, on vintage models, sort of like this one. I 100% much more prefer a mineral hardlex recreation as opposed to sapphire. And it's not a cost issue because, you know, sapphires, these, I have a guy, my go-to, one of my go-to watch guys for crystals. I can get it like for $3 a crystal, a sapphire crystal, so that's nothing. But for these vintage models, I much prefer the transparency that mineral crystal provides. And if you're careful, you know, I've had this for a week after service or a couple days, and you know, I use it around the house as a tool, as it should, and the mineral crystal still is intact. So that's the crystal, and the crown system is very unique. I didn't know when I bought this that the crown system was different than, you know, the SKX and modern Seiko divers, and that, you know, with modern Seiko divers you get you know, the crown and stem are sort of one whole unit, and you can't really separate both of them. Here there's something called a washer, there's a spring. Can't recall if washer is the same thing as a spring, but there's several components, and the gasket is really like stuck in there, so it's a bit more complicated maybe, but yeah, I just love that it's, if you break apart the stem, it's replaceable. With a modern Seiko, you have to replace the whole crown, and it just feels weaker. So I bought this, as I said, around December, January, a few months ago, and it was really dirty. The movement was super dirty inside, and I sent it to my one of my trusted watchmakers, and he did a fantastic job of cleaning this inside, of lubricating it. And I had bought for this model, I bought vintage time Australia gaskets. If you're a Seikoholic, you know what those are. And yeah, they're very popular, well-made gaskets for Seiko divers. And yeah, my watchmaker loved those gaskets. He said, wow, those blue gaskets and the transparent one in the crown looks so high quality. And so it has new seals and been freshly serviced, so that's really nice to have. Just feels great on the wrist. And I have this right now on an SKX 007 Jubilee. I did wear it these days on a rubber strap, and I have another solid and links from aftermarket, but I just love this this OEM Jubilee by Seiko. And I actually bought a spare. I just bought a few hours ago from Japan a spare 007 OEM bracelet. You know, before they they really start drying out of stock because they're bracelets that are not made anymore, and prices have gone up a bit, so prices will only go up higher on them. I know it's hollow end links, but they're just so comfortable and looks great on this slim turtle. The proportions are on these. They're slightly each, like one of the slim turtles are slightly differs. So um, this one has around 42 millimeters of diameter. I measured with my calipers the lug to lug of around 45.6, but I have seen online it's 46 millimeters. And I did measure the thickness around 12.6 millimeters. So if you're familiar with the SKX 007 case dimensions, this is just a tiny bit more compact. And as watch enthusiast, you know that every millimeter on your wrist matters, and it makes a big difference. And yeah, I just feel this just more comfortable on the wrist. Also, you know, the Tsunami case back, the logo, and this one is pretty much, there's no protrusion. It's almost flat. There's a tiny bit of protrusion, but it's minimal. While the 007 SKX, it protrudes a bit more. So this just feels more comfortable. And the crown at 4 o'clock exactly. You know, the modern divers are at 3:45, so that also helps. Yeah, just a notch more compact on the wrist. That's something I really like. I'll probably do a comparison with the 007 later, but there are some tweaks here and there and minor differences. Well, the hands, they're sort of white and greenish. These were transitional loom. So I believe these hands aren't used on the 7548, and I'm not sure about the 7002. If someone can comment if they are exactly the same. But these have sort of a greenish hue to them. And there's so many things. When I bought this, there's a saying that will buy the seller. So I did that first. I knew that these vintage models were faked a lot, but I just bought it blindly without knowing much, because I bought it from a very well-known member on a forum, and I bought from him before, so I knew that nothing would go wrong. And when I looked at the likes on the sales posts, there were some like really heavy hitters of the vintage world in Seiko, so I knew that they were approved by them. That's why I love buying on forums, because there's so many expert eyes watching these listings that I bought this, and after buying it I started researching a lot, and there's so many details. For example, this is from 1985. I read that the Suwa symbol at 6 o'clock between 82 and 84, 85 was small. By that I mean it was the same height as the rest of the text at the bottom. While from 85 to 88, like this one, the Suwa symbol is a bit larger than the text. So there's all these little details about these slim turtles. Here it is on my 6.5-inch wrist. Just love it on this bracelet. Looks great on rubber and probably will work great on NATOs, but yeah, it just fits my wrist perfectly. Yeah, so what I love about this reference is that it's a bit more obscure. It's not as popular. So it's sort of like if you know, you know. If you know, you know, because a lot of people will confuse it for a modern SKX, or they maybe think it's modded or whatever. But yeah, I love that within the vintage Seiko divers. I think this is one of the more underappreciated. I understand, because it's really hard to find a 100% original example, but they're out there, yeah. And yeah, I just grab one before these become much more well known, and they might be much harder to find later on. But yeah, definitely do your research, or do as I did, which was buy the seller from a very reputable source, and get it serviced, because these run without servicing. These movements are robust, but I prefer just for peace of mind. I just love the psychological feeling of having all the inside parts, they were freshly washed, and new gaskets, but that's just me. So yeah, let me know what do you think about this model, and if you have this reference. Thank you.